The Gamble House is really a special work of architecture because it represents all of the aspirations of the early 20th century arts and crafts movement in America, which was really based on the structure of a house being fully expressed on the exterior. You see the beams and the rafter tails, and you really understand how a house is put together by looking at a place like this.
It was a movement where handmade objects were the most important type of object. So when we see something that is so incredibly labor-intensive, handcrafted down to the smallest details, I think people today, that very much resonates with them. It's mixed, and it's a very unique expression in that it mixes in a lot of international elements, Chinese and Japanese in particular.
We are holding a number of events to celebrate the 50th anniversary of the gift from the Gamble family to the city of Pasadena, and it was a remarkably generous gift. The house was dedicated on September 25th, 1966, and we're having a big public celebration here on September 25th.
Well, this house was built for my great-grandparents in 1908, but I know it mostly as the house of my grandparents. My grandfather Cecil was the oldest child of David and Mary Gamble, who built the house. This is David and Mary Gamble, and he would be my great-great-great-grandfather. He was the son of James Gamble, the founder of Procter & Gamble, and he and Mary were the ones that built the house.
David Gamble, who was the original client with his wife Mary, in 1908, were looking for a place to spend the winter. They were looking to settle in Pasadena. Pasadena was a place where a lot of Midwestern industrialists came to spend the winter seasons.
They retired in 1948 from Cincinnati, and we had the pleasure of dining here most every Sunday and every holiday with my grandparents. So it was just a very happy, easygoing family time. And again, no one really checked on us, so we could get into as much mischief as we could find, and that included games of hide and seek in the closets or climbing the stairs via the railing rather than the stairs. There are several of these intercoms around the house, and we used to pretend that we were in an office and push all these buttons and annoy the staff. My great-grandparents had no idea what would happen to their house 108 years later. I think they would be pleased to know that it was being shared with a greater community because they were very generous people. Were they alive today, they would be delighted to know that this house is held in such high regard by so many people.
For me, what's most important and special about the house is it's the only intact surviving work by the architects Charles and Henry Green. So that means the outside of the house as well as all the interiors and the objects.
The architects of the Gamble House, Charles and Henry Green, were two brothers. They were less than 2 years apart, and they couldn't have been more different. Charles was the kind of the creative, dreamy thinker. Henry was more linear in his thinking. He was the engineer, and together the two were tremendously symbiotic. They brought to the equation so much more than the sum of their parts. The Gamble House represents the apex of their work, which brought together tremendous level of craftsmanship with an artistic mind at work, really two artistic minds at work, to create this rich combination of craft and design and architecture and structure that comes together in the most beautiful way you can imagine.
It's amazing to see the original furniture in its original place. So it's really a joy to see the house, kind of return to its original form and be so complete.
During our 50th anniversary year, there are a lot of new things happening at the Gamble House. We have just finished installing linoleum in the kitchen, the pantry, the cold room, and the servants' dining room to replicate what was there in 1908. We've also just been working with Isabel Green, who is the granddaughter of Henry Green, one of the original architects. She's designed a beautiful contemplative garden for the area behind the garage, which is now our bookstore. And it's a beautiful garden, and I hope that everyone comes to see it. There are benches back there to sit, and it's really where you get the best views of the Gamble House back from that garden. We have also finished work on a new documentary film that's going to be aired on PBS. A lot of people know the Gamble House primarily through the Back to the Future movies. And we celebrate that. We have a lot of love for Back to the Future and what it's done for us. We have people who bring their DeLoreans up to the driveway and photograph their car in front of the house. Last year we celebrated the 30th anniversary of the Back to the Future movies and had a special screening of the film on the lawn. We had a big festival day. It was a lot of fun, and we're thinking about doing something like that every year now to bring folks back who are really attached to that movie in almost a kind of a cult-like fashion.
People come for a number of different reasons. Some people are architecture fans and they just want to see the house, and other people like it as a social history. It tells a lot about how wealthy upper middle class people lived in this area in the early 20th century.
What brings people back is the tremendously personal way that this house was designed for the Gamble family with their love of art in mind. And we don't see that kind of architecture every day. So when you walk into this environment, you really understand that the clients, the Gambles, and the architects were really in an artist and patron relationship, much more so than merely client and architect. The Greens were building for people. We try to authentically recreate that family home feelings. That's compelling for people to come back and hear that story over and over again. Today we're inviting everybody to come. We're rolling tour ticket prices back to 1966 levels, so it's $1 to get in instead of the usual $15. And we have a kind of a festival atmosphere today. We have games for the kids, we have food trucks, we have a 50th anniversary cake. We're really thrilled to have everybody come out from the community today. It's a lot of fun to see people, most of whom are seeing the house for the first time.
It was a great experience. It was my first time, but it was worth every dollar of it.
Never being afforded the opportunity to go inside, seeing pictures of it, I just jumped at the opportunity to check out the interior, and it's far exceeded my expectations. It's absolutely gorgeous, stunning.
Anything with the architecture involved with it, I'm always out to check it out.
The sleeping porch was my favorite.
Yeah, they were a lot more like detail-oriented back then with all like the different types of woods that they used, and I think it was just really interesting looking at the architecture and comparing it to the architecture nowadays.
I came here the first weekend it opened in 1966, and it's just as good as it was when it was donated. And I just love it, the way so many people have come through it, and this 50th anniversary is a great thing.
The next 50 years, we're going to keep it in great shape. We're not going to see it deteriorate one bit, and we're going to keep interpreting it and keep it alive and well for future generations.
It's really gratifying to see so many people come out and appreciate the beauty of the Gamble house and the really spectacular architecture that is unique to Pasadena.